work out better.
Already in a new relationship.
Oh.
Scandal. Nothing is loading right now, though, but that's all I saw.
1,
2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Saying Dow here, still with my friend Cemetery Cosplay, also known as Gage, and today we are discussing the Netflix The Ultimatum Queer Love Edition reunion. What were your thoughts going into the reunion? Like, what did you think was going to happen with the reunion? Let's start there, because you never seen a show like this,
Right?
Let alone know there was going to be a reunion until I told you.
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, like I've seen like not dating show wise, but like we watch like Little Women LA, and they always have reunion episodes. So like I'm used to the concept of like a few months later, or I guess a year later in this case, let's get together, let's talk about what happened in the show, how we feel about it. So that was all expected. I was not expecting basically all of them to be broken up.
Right?
What were you expecting?
I wasn't expecting as much confrontational conversation, because usually with the reunion I see like there's this one issue in the show, let's talk about it now and like make sure everyone knows we've made amends, or things like that, and or like this happened and I'm sorry. That's usually what the reunion is for, just to make sure there's peace,
like clear the air.
And this one was just like, let's just throw more into the air. It was different, and I don't know, the outcome by the end, I was like, okay, that went somewhere I didn't think it would go. But it started off pretty nice. Vanessa did her whole spiel about like self-work, and I was like, okay.
Performative.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Every time she speaks, I'm like, I just don't feel the emotion.
The authenticity.
There we go, authenticity.
At least you're like, I'm going to be optimistic and give her no benefit of the doubt for Vanessa.
I just kept thinking she got bad edits, but then there's all these other clips, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And how many things can get edited to make you look that bad before you actually just are bad? I was fascinated though, because the way they sat everyone, usually what they do is like sit where you last knew they were, so like the couples with the couples.
Yeah.
And sometimes like in other shows they've done it where like they already knew certain people broke up, so they split them apart. So I saw that and I was like, why are they splitting them this way? Like, are people separated now?
Yeah.
But then the host goes, on this side are the people who received the ultimatum.
Right.
This side is people who gave the ultimatum. I was like, that is so smart.
And they all went, oh, because even they didn't know.
Because they were just like, you sit here, you sit here. So I was like, that is clever. It leaves imagination for us to figure out, like, why'd you sit them like that?
Right.
But
I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking, y'all look so different.
Y'all look
what?
Oh, yeah.
Pokemon evolutions.
Like, you don't realize how much you change in a year, and then the reunion happens, you're like, oh, snap.
Yeah. Like, you still recognize them, but they're also so different.
I saw Tiff, I was like, okay. And I looked at Vanessa, I'm like,
Vanessa's a brunette now.
I know. I was like, okay, I see you. Do it.
I see you. I don't see you. I don't like you. Get off my show.
As someone who changes her hair color a lot, there's no guarantee I would have been at the same color within a year, so.
I didn't have the same color yesterday. It's true.
Because, like, I don't remember the exact chronological order of the events of the reunion.
I literally watched it last night at 1 a.m. and I still couldn't tell you.
Yeah. But basically, they went through each couple and kind of went over different issues throughout the season. I was like, okay, that's a good way to go. But the first thing they address, of course, is Vanessa, and it leads to Fingergate.
Which, thank you for explaining that to me. I literally wrote, who the calls it Fingergate?
Yeah. And basically, that somehow trended somewhere, I believe, in the Twitterverse.
So probably Twitter.
And because it was such a controversy with like Lexi and Ray's discussion about the intimacy and intercourse that occurred with Vanessa, so it was called Fingergate apparently. And when I heard those words, I was like, please never say that again.
I just feel like, I mean, at least now I know it was a trending Twitter thing.
I don't even think, like, I don't want to believe it was trending, but I bet you it was.
Well, because I was like, where did you come up with this word? This is clearly made to, I feel like, and the way, and this is why I say that I feel like the show feeds into drama, because she was like, we can't talk about you guys without talking about Fingergate. And I was like, this is so stirring the pot. This was meant for both.
And that's when I knew. I was like, that was so scripted. Like, I bet you she didn't want to say that.
How did she say it with a straight face?
Right? She's just like, and it's the fact that, like, Lexi and Ray have already come to a certain term. Like, we don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, we've discussed it enough. We've done it to death. And, of course, that wasn't the answer they wanted. And Vanessa's being herself and throwing little tidbits in there to stir some pots. As per usual, because they mentioned to Mal and Yoli about honesty and how their end came to be. They reveal they're happily broken up. Which I was like, okay. And they tried to discuss the timeline of when that happened, and they got into a little headbutt of it.
Yeah, which it's like, y'all are broken up. I don't think the timeline really matters. But I think that Mal was mostly like, here is more evidence of you being a dishonest person to paint me in a bad light.
Yeah, I feel like the reason the timeline was mentioned was because Mal wanted to prove that, and then later Vanessa wanted to mention the timeline's important because they were still talking to each other as this conflict and breakup was going down before it was official, yada, yada, yada. And then Coachella was mentioned because Yoli and Xander were both there, which I'm like, any two people can be there at the same time. It's Coachella.
It's huge.
It's Coachella. And people do this with, like, Bachelor Nation, too. If you watch Bachelor or Bachelorette, there's, like, one guy who was the Bachelor.
And did they all meet up at Coachella?
Yeah, and they all met up at Coachella, the friend group, and they're like, oh, my God, they were canoodling and
at
all
Coachella.
This stuff. And now they're, like, somehow dating. It must have happened at Coachella. I'm like, oh, my God, can you? No.
Yeah.
They just happened to be at the same place at the same time. If they coordinated it, cool, but...
I don't necessarily agree that nothing probably happened, though. They were like, oh, we just hung out and saw each other, and we're like, hey.
I feel like they were just trying to see if they could hang out with, like, I don't know if it was platonic, but just, like, be around each other after everything. Because they, like, Xander somewhat admits that they were gonna try.
Right.
But things got too complicated, and it's true because it was complicated with ending it with Mal and then how she ended it with Vanessa. And everyone knows they had a thing for each other, so people think they're just gonna gravitate back, but then there's more logistics to it.
Yeah. I will say that was the reunion episode. Not that I was against Xander, but that was the first time in the entire series that I've been like, I am not Team Xander anymore.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was body language. It just felt off.
Well, and just Xander, you're ending episode 9 saying, like, I don't think that Yoli made the wrong choice. I support her being with Mal, but then you're still going behind Mal's back, having these conversations, continuing this potential relationship.
Yeah. It was always the fact that Yoli was like, what? Like, trying to be oblivious, too. Because they're like, what about Hawaii? What? Since what? Like, what? And she did that during the show, too. And Xander would always clarify. She goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like...
Was I ever talking about going to Hawaii? And Xander's like, you mentioned, like, if you were to come to Hawaii. And, oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, like, I just don't want to say it out of my mouth because this could get, like, mixed up, or she just didn't want to admit it. I don't know. But, like, that was something I recognized, like, after the reunion. I'm like, oh, you did that before.
Right. Oh, 100%.
Not the first time. What else gets mentioned besides Tiff and Mildred, which that escalated?
I know. I'm trying to think.
I feel like that was the majority of the reunion.
Yeah, like, Ozzy and Sam didn't really talk much at all about anything, I feel.
Not until, like, the end and, like, the disrespectful looks Mildred gave. I was like, I'm gonna fight.
Well, it's like they both... And I mean, I don't blame the host for this, but, like, I almost wish they had started with the more, like, reserved couples first.
Yeah.
Because, starting with Lexi and Ray was fine, and they're like, we're good, we're happy, things are great, this is fun. But then you immediately went into Vanessa and Ray's BS, and then it basically went into Mal and Yoli's, and then it went into Tiff and Mildred's. There was no space for anyone else.
Yeah, that too. I feel like... Was there even a way to avoid it, though? Because everyone was so intertwined with everyone. That was the first time in a show like this where everyone was so clicked together. Because, like, even at that one reunion dinner before, like, when they came back to the original pairs, they're all like, let's all gather up and, like, get Yoli so we could talk about Xander and Yoli's relationship. Like, the whole group met up. And I was like, what does this concern everyone?
Right.
So I feel like at the reunion when that happens, it was unavoidable because they were always like that.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, and Vanessa just kept interjecting every 5 seconds.
Click mentality. I don't know the word, but I was just like, they're all kind of intertwined in some kind of way.
Get a bunch of petty women together. No offense, women.
It was most of the reunions I've seen from these same shows like can get like that, but like that was one where like the storm off occurs and like it keeps going like nothing just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was,
well, and that's why back to my what the frackety frick is the point of the host?
yeah.
Because like if you're trying to have a reunion till it again, like you're saying, like clear the air, bring peace. You as the host are kind of the interviewee, where you're like here are specific posing questions, but then she just let them with no intervention.
I feel like I don't know. Usually they're supposed to have seen the show too. The way the host was talking, she made it sound like she was there behind the camera in all the moments.
I felt like and we'll get to the whole Tiff and Mildred fight, but like I feel like when Tiff left, it's kind of the host's responsibility to be like, let's put this on pause. I'm gonna go check.
Yeah, I wish, but no, I never seen that actually in these shows.
Go watch Little Women LA. That host is fabulous. He's great. He doesn't.
Like every show I've watched like this, the host never like goes out of their way to follow, but usually another contestant will.
Yeah.
So it was just. She wasn't really aware of what was going on. She just was given certain things to say and letting the group go off of it.
Right.
And so she had no control over it.
What did you feel about, let's talk about like Mal and Yoli and all that. How did you feel about Mal's, like, I'm going to arguably say personality shift? Like.
I never saw a shift per se. Because didn't Yoli mention there was a personality shift?
Yeah.
Because she's like, we went back and like Mal like went back. I was afraid she was going to go back to that personality like before the ultimatum, before all of this. And I was like, well, what's that personality? Like, if you can't tell us exactly what that personality is, we don't know what you're going off of. It just sounds like hearsay. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a manipulative thing to make Mal sound like she's a bad person. Yeah. Because Mal has been the same person I've seen from the beginning to end of like, I'm mature, I'm going to communicate. If I have confusion, I'm going to voice what I'm confused about. If I'm going to understand you, I'll support you, but I won't speak on your behalf. Mm-hmm. And she did that with Lexi. She did it with Yoli. She did it to Xander when she was trying to speak out to Xander to confront things between Xander and Yoli. Yeah. So when Yoli said that, I was like, what personality or behavior is Mal going back to?
Right. I just felt, I don't know if it was a vibe, but like I just felt like Mal, not a completely different person in the reunion, but it was not the same Mal. And granted, she'd been through all this bullshit with Yoli, and she was probably at the end of her rope, but
I feel like Mal came into the reunion knowing Yoli was going to try to like defame her. What's that the word? Like defamation.
Yeah, defamation of character.
Mm-hmm. And that's why she might have come off a bit different, because she's defensive. Mm-hmm. She knows exactly like what Mal knows exactly what Yoli is going to try and put out there and change. And of course, she looks and acts different in that moment, so it kind of feeds it. But the only way to stop it is to like stand your ground, and that's what Mal was doing.
That's fair, because I definitely saw like, I don't want to say the old Mal, but like I thought it was really cool that Mal even could admit like watching the show back, like she's like watching like with Yoli and Xander, she's like that love was there and it was beautiful to watch and it was palpable, and like that's very strong and mature of someone to say, because that could have pissed her off, and I feel like in some ways it did, but she was still like mature about it.
Oh, yeah.
Until Yoli came spouting in with a continued dishonesty and stuff.
It's because like Mal was totally willing to be acceptive of if Yoli wanted to choose Xander.
Yeah.
And when, of course, all this happened and Yoli said yes to Mal, and they went through their situation, had the split, she was like, I don't understand why you just didn't choose Xander, because now I got to see the scene you guys had after my proposal. And how you were clearly still torn about it versus you weren't like, nope, cut off straight, I'm with Mal.
Yeah, now. You're saying choosing me would be choosing you as my person, like after you just said yes to someone else.
Yeah,
like, Mal's now seeing that. Yeah.
I just feel like it was handled poorly on Yoli's behalf.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a shift in Mal that was concerning in any way. So I don't know what Yoli was trying to reference to.
Right. That's fair.
This is why I feel like it was pre-planned, because the host starts mentioning dogs. And I thought that was going to span like to everyone's dogs, but first it goes to Tiff.
Mm-hmm.
And then right when Tiff starts mentioning things that happened with her dog, because of course she's going to share that, that's when Mildred interjects and is like, oh, I just want to get my story straight, like in the timeline, so I can say things. And Tiff's like, what do you mean? And the whole time Tiff is questioning because Tiff doesn't understand what Mildred's intent is behind all these very outward attackative statements.
Right.
And that's why, like, when I saw it happen, I was like, this feels a little staged in a way, like like producers or someone in like social media knew this was going to stir some kind of thing, because within less than a minute Mildred's already in it.
Yeah.
And it's about Tiff and her dog. So I don't know how you felt about that, like if you felt it like how I felt it, because it just popped up in my mind. I was like, how do you just happen to know to mention dogs and to know that Tiff's dog went through something and that it was a part of like their argumentative breakup?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it, because I was so thinking like this is a really good opener too, because it was such a heated discussion with Tiff and Sam at the beginning of their trial marriage.
I thought that's what it was going to go
to. So I was like, this is a good opportunity for Sam and Ozzy, who are both the more reserved ones, to share their experiences, give them an opening.
Yeah, I totally thought that was going to reflect back to the argument she had with Sam about like the non-negotiable with her dog.
Yeah.
But it instead shifted to like this argument with Mildred. That's why I was really confused. And even after everything had passed, they let Mildred speak and just went on to something else. There was no other dog context, so that's what made me feel like it was intentionally put in there to stir something.
Yeah.
Because there was no continuation. There was other dogs.
Yeah, Margot. I love Margot.
That's why, like, when you were asking, like, whose dog is this? I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. There's so many. I've spaced. So she mentions dogs, and we talked about one, and it just stopped.
Right. Which, what, in your opinion, and I, as a dog lover, who, again, my dog will be non-negotiable, so I'm going to be Team Tiff, but do you feel, because the whole thing that started the fight was that Mildred said that it was incredibly inappropriate that Tiff had texted her over Christmas about her dog being sick and possibly not making it. Do you, even if they hadn't been talking, do you consider that inappropriate?
I feel like there's a lot of context that wasn't given in that.
Yeah.
Because, honestly, if it was straight out just that, like, they were broken up, they were no longer talking, Mildred didn't want to speak to Tiff, and Tiff did that, that's messed up. Because there's already that boundary set of, like, hey, I don't want to speak to you anymore, I don't want to have a connection, but you're messaging me about your dog. And, of course, it's something sad, and I feel like a bad person for not responding. Yeah. But in this sense, like, I feel like there is a piece missing where, like, maybe Tiff was trying to continue talking to Mildred and stay friends and or trying to work things out. Or it was holidays and her family didn't know that they had split, and they reached out to Tiff and they're like, oh, like, thank you for wishing me a happy holiday. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not in a great place right now. My dog is in the hospital.
Right.
And Mildred's like, that was really inappropriate. We weren't talking. We weren't together anymore. And you're reaching out to my family. You're texting me about this. So I was like, there's a piece there that Mildred doesn't say, and that's why, like, she seems so manipulative and narcissistic.
Oh, I'll read you the sentence later that I wrote about. But yeah, I was wondering about that because, like, even if, like, say, like, you haven't been talking for so long, if I had been in a long-term relationship, like, I'm gonna get attached to that dog too, so I would want to know.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's inappropriate for Tiff to.
They mentioned, like, the whole, like, situation they had where they tried to live together, and it sounded like after they decided to part ways, they were still living together for a little bit. So I was like, maybe they still were and hadn't officially ended yet. Like, they never really gave us a timeline. Yeah.
Well, because it's like I had friends that were together for like 10 years, and when they broke up, they don't talk to each other. It was a bad breakup, but they still check in on each other because they raised those cats together. Aww. And so like if the cat is ever sick, the other, like, the girl will text the guy and be like, hey, just letting you know, like, I'm bringing my cat to the hospital, like, our cat, like, despite the fact that they aren't talking. I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah. So that being a whole issue, I didn't understand, because when she brought it up, I'm like, I need an additional piece to add to why it was inappropriate. Because you're just saying it's inappropriate, and then she, like, starts to spill out about how they had already ended, and the host, like, stops for once. And I was like, wait, the last time I saw you guys were together and you were engaged. What happened? And it goes into that whole ordeal.
Yeah.
And Mildred just flat out admits all the abuse and, like, people say domestic violence that she had done in, like, the heat of the moment when Tiff and her had finally been at their last straw. And it gets...
She went to jail. She got
arrested.
Good.
And I'm like, okay. I was like, you got arrested for what? Oh, I threw a picture frame. And then I threw a pet gate.
Yeah, like Tiff is inappropriate for texting you about the dog being in the hospital, but it's not inappropriate to throw a pet gate.
Yeah.
Accountability.
It was weird too because there was like a little cut to Yoli's face when she started admitting about the arrest because Yoli did defend Mildred in the beginning.
I feel like she never turned against Mildred though either. I feel like she was always Team Mildred.
Because they admitted like that they love each other in like a friendship way. Like
go be together because you both suck.
But Mildred, like, she pulls all the cards that she knows are going to be validated in the way that she wants. Because she's like, Tiff made me feel like she kept telling me I was a bad mom and all, like, I put my son first. I'm like, none of that's wrong. But, like, Tiff flat out said, like, I tried to have a connection with your son and it was hard. And that's normal. Tiff has a problem with emotional connection. Tiff admitted that she didn't want kids, let alone how do you know how well she is with kids? Or a teenager, or however old your son is.
I could be super wrong, and this might just be me because I was watching it like middle of the night. But isn't Mildred's kid on the autism spectrum? Yes. Which is also like if someone who already struggles handling kids, it's an additional layer that it's incredibly hard to understand how to.
And as a mother, you should kind of be someone to help guide into that and help a partner kind of understand what they need to do. And it sounds like Mildred didn't do that, and it also sounds like Mildred doesn't know what to do with that.
Yeah, like if anything, like do like some sort of like family counseling, like have a way to like integrate them together.
So the fact that she was using that as a reason for why it was okay for her to get so upset and get to her last straw and break a picture frame and throw it and throw the pet gate, and then Tiff felt unsafe enough to have to call the police.
And Mildred honestly deserve one another because they're both gaslighting, lying, dishonest twat waffles. That's what I wrote.
Oh my gosh. It was funny too because I think it was either Lexi or Yoli who called Vanessa a narcissist. It was one of the two because they were talking to each other.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember.
I looked back and I was like, I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like narcissist is the right word. Maybe it is. But I felt like Mildred was the narcissist.
Yeah. I feel like therapeutically, I would say that Vanessa displays more traits of like narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
Where it's much like, I am the shit all the time. Everyone loves me. I am great. See? Mildred, I felt like was kind of honestly like displaying traits of borderline personality disorder, which is very attention seeking, lots of extremist behaviors to try and get your way. Like even storming off, walking away, even her having this, which we obviously weren't there, but like her having the fight of throwing things. It's like you will go to the extreme to get the reaction.
I was hoping Tiff would put like a restraining order because it sounded really concerning. And she was like, I'm a Latina and all this. And I was like, okay. And then you're throwing picture frames.
Latinas, definitely, you're allowed to be violent. Isn't that, I say it's
like, that's totally a stigma and stereotype. But then like you see it and then she like admits to it on TV for it to be broadcasted everywhere. And she's like, but it's okay because Tiff said I was a bad mom. And I'm like, well, Tiff cut you off and was like, when did I ever say that? And she goes, no, let me speak. And I was like, oh, that's the irony. You're going to say that to Tiff when you're just constantly going at her like, you're the bad person, you're the problem, you're the reason we broke up. You, not me.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me.
Yeah. And I would have done the exact same thing as Tiff with walking away. I just wish, and like, thank God for Sam, but like, I wish that she had gotten more support in that situation.
I was hoping, like, Ozzy looked very triggered. So, like, I was hoping Ozzy at some point would either come over and, like, comfort Tiff and just be there, like, on that couch because there's enough space for a third person. But, or that, like, Sam would speak up in between it, but Sam spoke up after the fact when Tiff decided not to come back. So, that's what was kind of heartbreaking for me because I thought Vanessa looked like she wanted to say something, but she's like, you can see in her shoulders that she was like, I'm gonna wait till it passes so I can process it. And by the time you process it, like, Tiff had already stormed out, Sam went after her, and then Mildred was like, I'm doing great, I'm doing me, like, I'm heartbroken because I don't have Tiff, but I'm gonna move on. And I was like, you just admitted to like all this abuse.
What did you think about how the producers handled all that?
There's one nice one. They don't.
So the one that was like, at least come inside because it's
you're
like,
gonna catch a cold, you're gonna, like, catch a cold or like die of like the cold or something.
Now you're done, right? Like, now this is your realization, and enough's enough, right?
I'm not going back and talk. I'm not going back in the talk.
okay.
What's honestly best for me is to never see her fucking face again. Like,
No, okay.
it's that simple. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want to move on in that sense. I think we should walk back to the studio, even if you go in or not, because you're going to get death cold.
Yeah.
Like that. That was like, she wasn't passive aggressive about it. It was like well intentional, and I don't remember where they shot, but it just sounded right. And I was like, she just doesn't want you to get cold. Because like they even offered Sam a jacket when she went out to console her. So I was like, yeah, it might be freezing out there. But everyone else, like cameramen, they had to do their job. They had to follow. But no one else kind of interjected. Usually it's like one or two people.
Yeah. I just like, my trash TV is Mama June from Not to Hot. Here comes Honey Boo Boo. Let's go.
Oh.
Like, their producers are very, very involved with that family. So, like, if June is doing something trashy to Alana, like, there was this one scene where they left, June left Alana at the airport after they just had flown back. And it was like, I bought you an Uber. You're an adult. You can handle it, to go be with some random man. And the producer goes up to June and is like, you realize that what you're doing is disgustingly wrong and you are choosing a random man over your daughter. So I'm used to like producer involvement like that. I almost wish that I almost wish that they had told Tiff, like, what you just experienced was really wrong. How could we support you? What do you need in this moment? Instead of just like, I appreciate the one producer who was like, hey, like, at least let's get inside because it's cold. I don't expect you to go back on the show. But like, I wish there had been more human connection and involvement of this was really wrong to happen.
I wished, in a way, Tiff came back and sat in there, but like they silenced Mildred.
Yeah.
Because I was like, how is no one telling her to stop talking?
How did Tiff not? Because then she left.
How did Tiff not get to say her side or anything that she wanted to say past like letting everyone know that her dog went through surgery? Tiff didn't get to discuss anything in the reunion.
Right.
That's why I was just like,
and I don't fault her for leaving. I would have too, and like getting in the van and being like, bye. But like, yeah, I wish they would have talked to her and convinced her to come back and said, what if we like remove Mildred and then you get an opportunity to share your side?
Yeah, because they do that on like Married at First Sight. If you have a conflict with someone, they won't put them in the same room. They'll be interviewed by the host separately, and if they both mutually agree to it, they will bring them together. That's why I was like, you knew they've said the whole time that they argue like this, that this stuff happens. You knew that's what you wanted, so you purposely let them be in the same room and just you let that happen. But then you did nothing to protect the one who was not being able to talk.
Right, which is why I see this whole thing as more of like a f***ed up game than anything, because it's not really taking actual human connection and emotion into account. It's like what causes the most drama.
I wonder if they'll do another reunion. Usually they do a second one for like after the reunion.
Really?
Yeah, and that's only if they all have something to like, you know, show.
Well, like maybe like if Sam and Ozzy as the only remaining couple,
be like we had our wedding,
yeah, they get married,
like bachelorette or something like that, and or like anniversary party is usually what it is. So or like on Love Is Blind, it was like a birthday party, and she invited all the people back because they were all friends with each other.
That makes sense.
So and then you just get to figure out where they are after the year reunion, and some of them do get to like make amends in person instead of talking with the host and facilitating it.
Right.
But I was just like, wow, Tiff did not get to speak.
She's my favorite character.
After the reunion, I was like, see, this is like any red flag Tiff had given me was due to how she absorbed and projected because of Mildred.
And it was a trauma response. And often, like, that's why it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Tiff's trauma response was fight. It was fight and flight. Tiff would either storm off and not have a conversation, or would get equally aggressive and vocal to try and be heard over Mildred. Which, again, doesn't excuse anything. Go work on your behavior. But, like, it makes the red flags make a lot more sense. You know?
It, in a way, kind of cleared Tiff's behavior. Like, it didn't, like, dismiss it like it was okay. But it made sense to, like, a lot of Tiff's actions throughout the show after that one argument on the reunion. And that, in a way, like, that was great. But, like, still, I was just like, Tiff deserved to come back and speak still. And the fact that they didn't do something to kind of allow that was what was upsetting.
Justice for Tiff.
Right? I'll put that on the hashtag.
Hashtag justice for Tiff.
And we were like, oh, that's going to be trending on Twitter.
Yeah, it is. Same with Fingergate.
Who ended up proving they were actually well-intentioned on the ultimatum. But they were framed as a villain when they entered the show.
I feel like that's such a baiting question. I feel like you're trying to make me mention Vanessa, who I will never like.
Because it's basically they came into the experience, whether they gave or received, and for some reason, some way, maybe it was the edit, they just didn't look that great on camera. They didn't come off as nice with their words, but at the end, actually wasn't a bad guy.
I mean, I feel like what we just talked about with Tiff is one
Tiff is for sure
great example. Justice for Tiff. You are still never going to get me to say Vanessa's a nice person. I literally said, stop stirring the pot, you dirty hoe, is what I wrote in my notes.
Vanessa has a chance, but I think she needs to really go and talk to her father, because her father seemed to have figured it out.
I think she needs to go talk to a therapist.
I mean, I feel like therapists too, but her dad can provide some insight, because he tried to when she got back with Xander and they had their talk. He was like, I see what you're doing. It's what I did.
Right.
So it's the fact that she didn't even take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel like really Tiff is the only ones who I saw as straight up villains from the beginning. Tiff I was indifferent about. Like I was like, you could have better behavior, but I don't think you're bad. But Mildred and Vanessa have constantly been mad at me since day one, and the reunion honestly just solidified that even more to me.
For me, it was Ozzy, because when I followed the Twitterverse, people were against Ozzy.
Oh God! Ooh, that was one of my quotes that I wrote too. Was like, "Do you do this with Sam?" And I'm like, "You don't throw
that in their face."
Their ex's relationship, like no.
But like, because I saw that, I saw a lot of people didn't like Ozzy, and Ozzy wasn't painted in a good light from the beginning, almost to the end ish. And then as Mildred stuff started to get revealed, and especially in the reunion, and Ozzy spoke up about how gaslighting made her remember her experience with Mildred, I was like, see, there was nothing wrong that Ozzy had done. There's work that she needs to do, but she was reacting the best way she could in the situation she was in with someone who's abusive. Right.
Well, I think it's probably like, because you're much more invested than me. I watched this for you. So I know nothing. So like to me, and I think like if you told me like, oh, like people viewed Ozzy as a villain, I think that we are probably on this couch ofness, the couch. But like you understand from like an Asian heritage perspective and like a family culture perspective of how this is. I understand because I'm a therapist. So not once did I think like, wow, that's really freaking rude of Ozzy to do. Like I was like, good for you for being empowered enough to leave a toxic situation.
Yeah. I feel like Mildred's point of view was the exact opposite, because she doesn't have what background I can empathize with, and she doesn't really know the therapist background. So when she spoke at people who also don't know these two backgrounds, they're like, yeah, Mildred's right. Like, how could you just walk out?
If Ozzy had stayed, she could have had a pet gate thrown at her. That's like how victims of domestic violence stay, and that drives me nuts that people... That's why people stay in domestic violence relationships, because they're seen as the villains for leaving.
Yeah. Her trauma response is freeze. So I was like, imagine if something got thrown. Like, she would have just gotten hit. And I don't even know if producers would have aired it. I don't even know if they would have explained it. Like, it could have been something that, oh, it happened off camera. But really, it did happen on camera, and they just don't want to air it because it's too, like, triggering or too concerning, yada, yada, yada. And then Mildred would be like, oh, they tried to paint me as a bad person because they got the video of me throwing yada, yada, yada. Yeah.
No. So it's like, no. Like, the person who is being abused is not the villain, and Ozzy did what she needed to do to protect herself from the abuser.
I'm really glad that Sam also came too, because when Ozzy mentioned like the whole gaslighting reminded her of her trial manager's Mildred, it panned to Sam and she was like, yep.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning when she got back with Sam was like, oh, is this what happened with Mildred? And it triggered Ozzy.
I think Sam and Ozzy have grown a lot together.
I think they had a lot of good conversations after the experience that they never got to mention because they got mentioned last.
Yeah. But they're still together. No one else is. What does that say?
I'll follow them on Instagram. I hope they'll be my friends. I love them. But my last note for the reunion after looking back at the whole show was, what were some important quotes or lessons from contestants' family or friends that you feel should be noted?
Ooh.
I love that Lexi's parents were just like, calling around like you wanted us to support this person and now you have this person. You need to decide, like you're
Mm-hmm.
young, like you're showing your age, and we just want to support you. Whoever you bring to us, we will love, but we want to make sure you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear that from parents, so I love that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with your family trauma.
I looked at the camera. I was like, I would love to hear that from my parents.
Yeah. Man, most of the quotes that I wrote were all sassy quotes. Like, God, how many times the whole Vanessa talking to Xander in the reunion thing too, just like, you're my fucking buddy. I was like, this is weird. But like, I think most of what Mal said overall throughout the series should really be highlighted, because there was no jealousy. It was like always like, I love you and you will always be my person.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm controlling you. That means that because I love you, I am giving you the power of choice and I will support you no matter what, because that is how I choose you.
That was a good line, though. I was like, wow, I didn't even type that out, but that was a good one from Mal.
Yeah.
That's how I could tell Mal was genuine, because that's not easy to say and or to actually act on, and Mal did both.
Yeah.
What was my line? Of course, we're gonna talk about Tiff's friend.
Love Tiff's friend.
I feel bad because
Tiff should date Tiff's friend.
I'm gonna go back and find the name if they have it, and I'm gonna put it over here. And if it's not, it's just gonna say Tiff's friend. But the way she mentions, like, I'm divorced, and like I know what it's like to like go through that and have it not work out, and Tiff doesn't want to go through that process. Like, what is gonna make it different? Have you guys? Like, you guys can't work this out after 2 months of spending 3 weeks with someone else and then 3 weeks together and suddenly be okay and be engaged. What are you going to do? And that's when they brought up the whole, oh, well, we did therapy and it didn't work. We did this and it didn't work. And she goes, exactly.
Right.
So what are you doing?
So why? Like, why continue?
That was so upfront. And you don't really hear that from a friend, especially when you know your friend's trying to, like, people please. So.
That's why you're friends with me.
Yeah.
Because I'm blunt.
Me too.
Yeah. I really thought there was a lot of, like, not necessarily quotes, but therapeutic takeaways. You know, like, even, like, if people villainized Ozzy, I thought that Ozzy continuously saying, like, I need to take space and I need to come back to this conversation when I'm in the mental capacity to handle this conversation.
Yeah. The
Huge.
Whole, like, I can't talk to you when you are in this state and I'm just trying to be like this.
Yeah. It would eliminate a lot of emotional reactivity in couples.
Yeah. I feel like the only reason it caused issues with Ozzy and Sam was because Sam's time frame of space was different, but with Mildred, she didn't want to allow space at all.
Right.
And
like, there's such a thing as feeling like it's like you haven't spoken about it for a week and then you're ignoring the issue, but even just taking 10 minutes to breathe and collect your thoughts.
I knew Ozzy was meaning that need of space when she had come back from that dinner and Mildred started getting confrontational, and she's like, you know what, like, I want to go back out. And I don't think she said can I or may I, but she asked, can I just go back out? One, to make sure that was okay with Mildred, because they are in the middle of a conversation, and two, just to show that she does need the space. And Mildred's like, why are you asking me?
Right. Right.
Because it's rude to just leave,
Mm-hmm.
which you still accused her of doing eventually when she decided to leave the whole situation in trial marriage.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you left me, and like everyone in my life has left me, and I don't want to sit here and think about like it's my fault. I'm like, but family members leaving out of your control. Probably something happened when you were really young and started to grow up. Ozzy leaving was absolutely something that could have been at your fault and Ozzy's fault, because Ozzy didn't know, one, how to set boundaries and stand up for herself in that kind of situation. Plus, you can't control an abusive person.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mildred didn't want to hear out Ozzy and or allow space.
Yeah.
You can't just stay in that forever.
Yeah. Well, and I think the ultimate takeaway for me, which was really stressed by Xander more than anyone else, but you have to put yourself first.
Yes.
Like, it is.
Xander did that.
Yes. And it is okay to be selfish. And, like, yes, the show is about relationships. Yes, as a society, we are very driven by relationships. But at the end of the day, the only person that's with you from birth to death is yourself. So don't people please. Don't stay because you feel like it's the right thing to do. Like, put yourself first. Choose you.
Yeah. Xander lived by that too, because she admitted, like, yeah, like, I could have tried something with Yoli. We can try, but like right now I want to work on myself to make sure I'm the best self for me and then any future relationship I get into, because I realized after going through it that even though I thought I was ready for marriage and kids, I still have some work to do. that's a good outcome of the show. That's a good point to get to from the show, because that's the point of the trial marriage. It was figuring out, are you actually ready now that you gave the ultimatum are you sure? Are you ready for the commitment? And if you received it, it was, how can you get there? And those were the lessons you were supposed to learn, but everyone kind of gets straight off to a different path, and that's how it becomes like this drama-filled, misconstrued thing. But Xander stuck to it. I think Mal grew from it because she admitted, like, wow, like, you showed the whole world what a good partner I would be and what a good mother I would be, kind of thing. Those were the true lessons of what the ultimatum should result in, but it's not often seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was very, and they admit it was very much focused on, I want to get married. Like, but also most of them are still so young, and figuratively. And it should be like, you could love someone unconditionally in the world, but until you love yourself and genuinely know yourself, you're not ready.
I don't even know myself. I'm 24. How did you do it, Lex?
Lex doesn't know herself. That's why they ended with the one sentence line of
I know. I was so shocked by that because they were so happy speaking
going
about
to
it.
Google. I wonder if Google said anything about it. Lexi and Ray from the Ultimatum.
And this is the Queer Love edition. How do you feel about the concept of the show Ultimatum?
It sucks. I'm never going to change my mind on that. Maybe I need to watch another season or like series of it, because the way that you framed it sounds like it's usually much different. But the whole concept that this was very presented of, you either leave, propose to the person, or engage to the person that you came with, engage to someone else, or single. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
It was very much like, I was like, this is messing with people's emotions. This is forcing people into ultimatums, but like, it's forcing people into choices that they are not ready for yet. And this is, at least they ended up broken up rather than getting married, because I was like, this is just a surefire shitstorm for divorce.
Yeah. If you want to see other ones, you don't have to. But like, I like Love is Blind Japan.
Yeah. I almost was going to sign up for Love's Blind, and then I was like, but
No,
I don't, no,
don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.
No, I read it, and I said, but that's exactly the point. It's like, for me, like, love, I love love. I'm a hopeless romantic. Like, relationships are very important to me, but they take a lot of work. They take a lot of time. Like, you can't just be like, I'm going to get to know someone, and then, like, throughout this course
Bam,
of time, and
ultimatum.
then bam, yeah, marriage. No.
Oh, at least it was, like, they weren't supposed to, like, push the engagement so hard, but, like, there's, like, Love is Blind. The show ends at the wedding.
Yeah, which is gross.
Yeah, so I was like, at least they didn't force the whole, like, you have to get married and have a wedding.
I just think forcing an ultimatum on someone in general is incredibly toxic.
Yeah. I feel like the concept originally was because Nick and Vanessa Lachey, like, it was a reflection of their relationship, of how, like, it was either 5 or 7 years they were together. And he's like, I want children. And she goes, okay, well, I would rather us be married before children, so you're going to have to propose. And that was the idea behind the ultimatum. And so they created the show, and I thought they were going to bring couples in who had been together for about the same amount of time, who are going through the same thing. Like, I want this and this, but in order to get there, she wants marriage. And I'm not ready to propose, but she wants a proposal. I thought that's what it was going to be.
Yeah. Which really the only couple that reflected that even somewhat was Mal and Yoli at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they both wanted marriage. It was
So-
just, we need this first.
It maybe it's a casting thing, I don't know, but it's kind of drifted away from that. And if they find their way back, I'd be more interested in the show.
Yeah. It honestly, like, there were so many times that I was like, this is really sadistic and up to do this to people's emotions and put people in this spotlight, put this on the line, and it was destined to up relationships.
Yeah, exactly what the reunion entailed. I feel like there could have been a whole more like a whole other hour added to the reunion if there weren't conflicts and like Tiff leaving and things like that, and or if they separated it and were a little more conscious to the contestants. But this was I love it, Netflix, the Ultimatum Queer Love Edition reunion recap from someone who's an avid watcher of productions and series for Netflix reality love shows and someone who hadn't seen it before.
And doesn't watch love shows.
Let us know what you think below, other questions you feel we could have discussed more on and want to hear about, opinions, thoughts, ideas, on the Queer Love Ultimatum in general, and or certain contestants that ended up together, ended up not together, and who should have been together. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on my social medias, and as well as Gage.
Also, disclaimer real fast, our opinions are our opinions. We do not speak for our full communities. So I know I've made some weird comments as a queer that other queers may not agree with. So.
Yeah, the whole point.
Whole point. Yes. Awesome. Bye, guys.